And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Fast Sloths. Fast Sloths sounds like a contradiction of terms, and it is indeed. Sloths are not fast. In fact, in this game, you as a sloth are extremely lazy, and the tagline here is pick me up and deliver me. Fast Sloths is a race game in which you don't ever move. Instead, as a sloth, you will use other animals to pick you up and move you. So in essence, this is a pickup and delivery style game, except there's one good. It's you, and you're going to use various animals to move you around the board in a sort of race. Here's how it plays. On each of the different trees on the board here, you're going to put a leaf of each player's colors. Players are going to pick a color sloth. They're going to put that sloth on one of the trees. You can pick which one. You'll immediately eat the leaf of that tree because you're lazy, and you'll place it on your board. You need to get 8 of the 9 leaves on the board to win, so essentially a race, you need to go around and collect 7 leaves. You're going to pick some animals to play with. I'm showing you the 6 starting animals. They're listed here. We have the donkeys, crocodiles, eagles, ants, elephants, and unicorns. They each have a certain number of discs that will go on the board. You could also use the humans, rabbits, giraffes, dolphin, orangutans, and mountain goat. You can mix and match these different creatures that are on the board. You do not have to. This is basically what the starting ones setup is. You're going to pick where all the animals go once it starts. Players will take turns placing them on the board, but this is like a setup for a very basic game. Your board is going to tell you what you're going to do on your turn. First of all, you draw cards. So at the beginning of the game, while you have only 1 leaf, you draw 3. Once you get your second leaf, you'll draw 3, discard 1. All the way down to the end where you draw 2 and discard 1. When you draw cards, if possible, you must draw them from the different piles. And the piles are initially set up, so you can see the elephant moves are 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, and a 5. As cards are discarded, eventually this pile will run out, and then you'll slide the discard pile in, so it will probably go from 2 to 5, and then kind of backwards from 5 to 2, although not quite. The numbers are going to change, but you're going to grab these. Now what these do is they tell you how many movement points it gives that animal. It also tells what terrain types on the board that animal can move in, and the special ability of that animal. So some animals have more types that they can move in, but they might have a restrictive ability, and players are going to have to decide which ones to take. After players decide to do that, the next thing they'll do is, optionally, you always have to draw cards, optionally you can move an animal, and then you need to discard down to a certain number of cards in your hand. Now, when you move an animal, and this is kind of the whole meat of the game, you're going to pick an animal and you're going to play as many cards from that animal as you want. You'll pick 1 animal. So let's say I'm an elephant. I can play 3 elephant cards for a total movement of 6, although the elephant has a -1 total added to that amount, which is kind of the opposite of the crocodiles, which if I played 3 of these, it would be 6 plus 1 added to that amount. And crocodiles have the ability to move through water, which is something very few creatures do. Now, when you use the animal, you're going to move it. If the animal ends adjacent to your sloth, you can jump onto that animal and it can keep moving. You can move the full distance, and as you move, if you move through trees that have your leaves, you'll be able to take those leaves and put them on your board, or if you stop there. When the animal stops, it can drop you off on an adjacent spot, even if it can't go on that terrain, which is again another way to get to the trees. And that's pretty much it. Players are going to take turns moving these animals around. Now you'll notice there's a certain amount of discs on the board. Each animal will move differently. For example, when you move ants, let's say I have 4 ant movement points. I can go 1, 2. Ants, I can move all the discs rather than just 1. And if my sloth was here, I could then go 3 because the ants just carry me over a whole line of them. The unicorn has the best cards in the game. It goes all the way up to 7, but the unicorn can only play 1 card. The eagle, you have to play a total of 6 to even use the eagle. The eagle will then fly right next to you and then carry you up to 6 spaces, and it can go over almost all terrain. The elephant, when it's done, is going to throw you 3 spaces away from it. And again, there's so many different special abilities. The human, depending on, if you're using the alternate characters, the human can move from resort to resort along a whole path with no problems. The giraffe can pick you up or drop you off 2 spaces away rather than 1 because of its long neck. The orangutan can throw you just like the gorilla. The mountain goats can easily move through mountains. The dolphin can move through the river. The rabbit is just really fast when you move the rabbit. The donkey is the most boring of all creatures, but it has some pretty basic movement type abilities. And that's pretty much the special abilities of all the different animals. The first person to get all the leaves they need, 7 leaves, will end the game, although it's possible that multiple people will do it in the same round, in which case the higher total of move cards you have left is the winner of the game. I find that the game looks a little homemade. That tends to be how Friedman Fries's games look. Each side of the board is double-sided, so you can make a total of 4 different boards. And you have different animals. You have these, you can cut these because normally the ones that are on the different sides, like you would use either the elephant or the giraffe. And so they have it set up that way. They recommend that you don't use some of the creatures together at the same time. So if you're using the crocodiles, you shouldn't be using the dolphins at the same time, although you can. The discs and everything are really nice. You're going to have to sticker them up, but not a big deal. The cards are really handy. I found that it was really easy to remember the special ability of all the animals, and it shows you what terrains they are. They're not that great of quality, though. You may have to sleeve them. They're a little thinner than I would prefer, especially considering how much you're going to use them. I really think the game could look better, but as it is functional and easy to play. And there you have it, a very easy game to teach and play. There's a few rules that some people may not kind of grasp as they first go in, like, okay, the animal grabs you from an adjacent spot and then you move around. And some of the animals are a little bit more wonky. The ants, I was kind of surprised they put the ants in the basic game since they're a little trickier to understand. But again, when I say a little trickier, I mean they're not as dead drop easy as the rest of the animals. This is a pretty simple game, and it's a really good race game. At first it starts off a little slow, especially if you never played before. You're drawing a couple cards, you play a card, you move one animal, you pick yourself up and move yourself. But as time goes by, it starts speeding up, and then you start moving animals towards you, away from other people, trying to find out the most efficient route to move on the board. This game gives me some really strong vibes to a game that won the Spiel des Jahres award in Germany many years ago called Elfenlands, or Elfenroads. There's 2 versions. And that was also a game where you use different methods of traveling. I think this is a superior game to that. Of course, it is many years later. And I also think that this one honestly has the vibe where it could be nominated for the Spiel des Jahres. It's a great family weight game that offers more depth than you might imagine. I'm kind of hot and cold in a lot of Friedman Fries's games. Some of them I love, some of them I don't. This one definitely leans towards I really like it a lot. I like the fact that you can play with 6 different animals each time. I like the fact that the different animals are going to do various movements. I like the fact that it really does feel like a race, and the concept's pretty simple. Draw some cards, play some cards. And you're sitting there when it's not your turn trying to think which animal is the best one to move you on the next turn based on what types of terrain and how many cards you've collected of that type. And then someone moves the animal to a different spot, and you go, all right, got to readjust my thinking. It's an interactive game to some degree, but at the end of the day, you need to be the most efficient person. I wouldn't call this a take-that game, although you can definitely move the unicorn towards you and away from the other person. And it's just fun. It lasts a good length. It's about an hour per game. Like I said, I wish the component quality was a little higher up there. I actually like the artwork of the animals, but the whole thing does feel not quite professional, I guess would be the strongest word I could use in that regard, but it still is really fun and entertaining to play. And one that I was pretty surprised about because I saw it and I was like, yeah, okay. I started hearing rumblings that the game was good from a few people, and now that I played it, found that I really enjoy it. It's a really good race game, and it feels different from other stuff out there. The author Friedman Fries always tries new and unusual things. He builds upon other games and tries to take them in paths that other people haven't. Sometimes it fails miserably, honestly. In this case, it worked really well, and I recommend you check out Fast Sloths. I'm Tom Vasel. See you next time. Dice Tower Judgment approved.